Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our current session focuses on weaknesses of grammar translation method. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand what are the major weaknesses of this method. Well, my dear students, grammar translation classes are usually conducted in the student's native language. Grammar rules are learned deductively, and students learn grammar rules by rote. What does all this mean? The teacher introduces a grammatical rule. The teacher presents a comparison of that rule in L1 and L2. That is L1 that they already know, and L2 is the target language that they are attempting to, that they are trying to learn. And through the deductive process of learning, the students learn how to apply that rule. It is not inductively. It is not where the students, by practically using language or by applying, or by creating certain structures, would learn that this is the rule. It is rather where the rule is given first, and then they see how it is applicable to certain structures. Students learn grammar rules by rote. Rote learning, cramming, or memorizing, whatsoever you may call it. This is one of the key components of grammar translation method, and this is one of the weaknesses as well. The student's intellectual capacity, the student's comprehension is not tested. What is tested is student's memory. Then these students, they practice those memorized rules by doing grammar drills and translating sentences to and from the target language. So, for example, in a typical Pakistani English language teaching classroom, the teacher would give sentences in Urdu that are to be translated into English, or the sentences that are given in English, they are to be translated to Urdu. So, this to and fro movement from L1 to target language translation, this is the kind of practice, or this is the kind of drill that is done. What is the result? The result is the students get some practice in reading, and they get some practice in writing. But what is neglected? Speaking and listening are overlooked because they are not involved in the process of practice. More attention is paid to the form of the sentences being translated than to their content. When one expression is used in one language, the meaning that it conveys, when it is translated into another language, the expression may lose the meaning. The meaning may have a different flavor. But grammar translation method strictly believes in word-for-word translation. It strictly believes in translating according to the grammatical rules. The result is that by paying more attention to the form, the essence of communication is what is neglected. Another weakness of grammar translation method is that tests often consist of the translation of classical texts. Now, if the classical texts are to be translated, of course, they are obsolete. Of course, they are not in communicative use, in everyday life use. So it becomes a meaningless activity. There is not usually any listening or speaking practice when it comes to the classroom practices, and the result is that listening and speaking are also not tested when it comes to testing, and very less attention also is paid to pronunciation because speaking and listening are not involved. So what is the result? The student knows the translation or the English equivalent of an Urdu expression or an Urdu structure, but the student is unable to pronounce it or to use it in a communicative situation. This is one of the weaknesses. Also, one of the weaknesses is that there is usually no practice in communicative activities. Whatsoever practice is given in the classroom is either in reading or in writing, and even that is done without putting it into any context. Communicative aspects of the language are ignored, and the skill exercised is reading, then only in the context of translation. The social context is removed. It is placed in isolation. So even in examination, for example, typically in Pakistan, the student would get a paragraph to translate from Urdu to English or from English to Urdu without providing any context. The result of this approach is usually an inability on the part of the student to use language for communication. So what I would say as a concluding remark, that the weakness of grammar translation method lies in A, the lack of using language for communicative purposes, B, lack of development of communicative skills, and C, little if any experience of speaking and listening on the part of the learner.